Hey, what's up, everybody? Lawler here. We got some interesting stuff to talk about today. For those that don't know, Wave Dash tournament put on by Dazerin, $20,000 tournament, was put on this weekend. And it's come to a conclusion. 4 days of grueling action. 3 days, 4 days? I think it was 4 days. Either way, there's a lot of tournament going on. 10th, 11th, 12th. 3 days of grueling action with an open qualifier, so it is 4 days. Clarify on that. But 4 days of action, going through a bunch of different qualifiers, closed qualifiers, and then a main event that had multiple stages, until we found the finalists. So we're going to be recapping that, going through what the format is, who played in it, all that kind of stuff, taking a look at some of the highlights throughout the tournament as well. Shout outs to Wojtek, the editor, for all of his work for finding the highlights and making it look cool. But yeah, we're going to talk about all that kind of stuff, and then we'll get into kind of my overall thoughts about the tournament. First look at NA RLCS. These are some of the teams, some surprising us, teams that are going to be possible dark horses coming into the scene. A lot of really cool stuff in today's video. What's up, everybody? Lawler here, inside source for all things Rocket League. Going to be breaking down Wave Dash today, tournament put on by Dazerin. It's a $20,000 tournament, and then there was also a $10,000 content creator tournament as well that ran alongside that. To kind of break down, we're going to go into segments. We're going to talk about the format. We're going to talk about some of the unique things. Then we'll get into the specific matches for the main event. So, for those that don't know, the way that it worked out is there was an open qualifier, closed qualifier, and the main event. In the open qualifier, a bunch of teams signed up, had the capabilities to go through a bracket until we were left with X amount of teams, and it progressed from there. Basically weeding out all the competition until we got to the top teams. In the end, we're looking for 16 teams to get to the main event after we get through the open qualifier and the closed qualifier. Once we got those 16 teams, there was multiple stages to the main event. In stage 1, it was a 16-team Swiss-style format where the best of the best played the best of the best. After we got through all those matches, the top 8 then proceeded into stage 2. Once you get into stage 2, it was then a knockout gauntlet between the two teams, which were all best of 7s, and they did that with a page playoff format where teams ended up, after how they performed in the seeding for the Swiss style tournament, if they were first and second overall, they would get a 2-round bye. If they were 3-4 overall, they had high seed and could lose and have an extra life. It's similar to how playoffs used to be done in the RLCS way back before RLCS X. And then after you got through that and we got to our top 4 teams, then we ended up going into stage 3, which is just a double elimination bracket. Really simple and straightforward. Nothing too complicated there. The 16 teams should be showing on your screen right now. We had G2, NRG, Space Station Gaming, Envy, V1, Shopify Rebellion, True Neutral, Oxygen, MX Gang, Vibrance, Team.exe, Nefarious, Zookeepers, Xset, Tuscana Sonics, and Kansas City Pioneers. If you'd like to see who those rosters are or more details on them, they'll probably be talked about in this video at some point, or you can check the description down below for links to everything I am talking about if you'd like to also follow along with what I'm talking about. Also, while you're down there, if you guys enjoy the content, give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, turn on notifications. Would be greatly appreciated. With that said, we're going to take a look quickly at the Swiss stage and be showcasing highlights from now until we get to pretty much the knockout gauntlet. But there's a ton of teams in here, obviously 16, and the results are as follows from top to bottom, and some pretty exciting things overall. First things first, you're looking at some of these names that are not teams that existed towards the top. The biggest surprise to me is G2 Esports getting knocked out in that first round. Did not expect that. They took losses to Xset, which is a name you should definitely pay attention to. Nefarious, another team you should pay attention to, and then Energy, they ended up beating .exe. The reason why I say this, and primarily, is Xset, if you guys don't know, has a new roster iteration, and that's kind of the exciting thing about this tournament, is we got a lot of first looks at some teams that made major roster changes, Xset being one of them. They brought in Percy from Alpine, and it has made a world of difference, and the whole tournament, throughout the whole thing, kind of felt like the bubble teams or the lower RLCS teams, not to discredit them by any means, just felt like they wanted it more. Also, alongside that, it looked like True Neutral, who is making a very, very impactful move from going from South America's #1 team to hopefully getting through the ringer that is North America, and showing that not only can they compete against the best in North America, they can win some of those matches, and they can also bounce back after tough losses. They can go down in a series and reverse sweep, which we'll get into later, But there's a lot of really exciting things about True Neutral. True Neutral is going to become a fan favorite. Many of you should get ready to start spamming Vamos in chat, because why not exclaim let's go in another language, which is going to be awesome. So the whole situation between this tournament is really cool, very telling, but some things remain constant. Usually the top dogs stay at the top. That's nothing new. Nefarious, also another team that caught a lot of people off guard ultimately. Hawk, Adam, and Buddy playing extremely well. Also Vibrance, another team. Astro, Oath, and Fifi, very talented as well. I mentioned that in the last video where Fifi's kind of cracked. Been really exciting to watch them as well. So the 8 teams that move forward are Space Station, Envy, True Neutral, V1, Xset, Energy, Nefarious, Vibrance. The biggest surprises for me there, no G2, no Shopify Rebellion. Those are the 2 that I'm surprised did not move on. Was actually surprised seeing V1 go against some of the teams that they used to struggle against, like Shopify Rebellion, where it almost always goes to 5. They ended up closing it out in that one. So V1 trying to create some sort of separation between some of these other rosters, but some things remain constant with V1, which happened in the next round. So after that all goes down, we have the matches, the Swiss stage. You can see all the results on that Liquipedia page. That's the description. We then get into the knockout gauntlet with the final teams. They're split into 2 different groups based upon seeding, with Space Station being the number 1 seed, Envy being the number 2 seed. They go in their own respective bracket, and that carries through. Because it is a page playoff system, you take the 2 lowest seeds, Energy and Nefarious. They play each other. V1 and Vibrance play each other. Winner of that moves on to play the loser of Space Station Xset or Envy True Neutral. You should be seeing all of these brackets, both groups, on your screen somewhere over here. This should not be surprising. I'm just kind of going through all the results at once just because it is a lot of games. When you're talking 4 days worth of matches all being recapped, it's just way too much. If you want to go deep dive, if you want to go check out any of the VODs, any of that kind of stuff, that link in the description down below. You can click any of the little info icons. It'll give you a drop down, timestamps. Almost all of these matches were streamed. Some were off camera, which is really unfortunate. To my knowledge, there is a couple that I really wanted to see that I couldn't. But the nice thing is some people were streaming those. I recommend going over to the Rocket League Esports subreddit thread. You can look at the match threads, and there is some people discussing where you can find some that may not be on Liquipedia. So, big takeaways from this. Number 1, Energy drops to the lower semis and gets knocked out by Nefarious. That should surprise you. I will say that this is 1 week. Energy is not falling off. Energy is not any worse than they were, but sometimes when you play against teams and play styles, things don't always line up the way that you expect. Things are kind of weird from your expectation that you've been set. Some of the things that you are used to playing against don't happen, and there is a lot of teams, if you don't scrim against these types of play styles, will catch you off guard and they may surprise you, and that's happening to a lot of different teams. V1 was notorious for it back in RLCS, and it happens again here against Vibrance. Teams that you are not familiar with can cause issues. By all means, get your copium or whatever you want out. We're not trying to make excuses, but it is some of the insight to provide where when you don't play teams that you're used to, some weird things can happen. Also, you've got some new rosters coming in that can also surprise, and I think that was Xset to a T. Xset comes in with Percy and showcase how good we really are. You've got a fundamental player that can pass the rock, he can hit double touches, he can do everything, and he's going to facilitate and make everybody else on this team better. To me, Percy was always the number 1 player on Alpine just because of the bias I have towards really good support, methodical, people who understand how to use space. Percy is one of those players. Mist, also one of those players. Archie, players like that I really appreciate when they do the small little things really, really well. So Percy, a great addition to the team. He, to me, is one of the best free agents or one of the most sought after players when Alpine decided to say, hey, you can go do your thing. So the fact that he's making a huge impact on Xset is awesome. Big surprise, though, that General Energy does drop that early. Space Station winning 4-3 over Xset, also showing how well Space Station and Xset both playing. Arsenal's cracked. That's all you need to know. Arsenal playing extremely well. I will say, on the other side of things, Envy over True Neutral, that one was a lot more one-sided than I thought it was going to be. The breakdown doesn't really say too much about it, but there is 2 overtimes in here, a couple 1-goal games. It's a lot closer than it looks. Every game but one being a 1-goal game. Game 1 was 3-1 in favor of Envy. But that's exciting to me. The fact that True Neutral is keeping that close against one of the most difficult teams to score on. Atomic, or as deemed on the broadcast, the Machine. Very, very cracked. A lot of exciting things that Envy is kind of picking up where they left off. It does feel like a lot of these teams are kind of ready to get back into the swing of things, but might take a little bit to get that ball rolling, which we've seen in years past. First or second week of RLCS, you're like, wow, this gameplay is kind of sloppy. And then they kind of get their stuff going and it all goes back to normal. So the big thing that I mentioned, though, a little bit ago is with True Neutral bouncing back. True Neutral goes down against Envy, immediately drops down, and then has to play another match against Vibrance, the team that just comes off a really hot win against V1. And they actually end up reverse sweeping it. They lose 3 in a row, 2 overtimes that they end up losing last second. And you're just like, man, this sucks. It looks like True Neutral's out of it. And then True Neutral wins 3-0, 2-0, 3-1, 3-2, and they close it out and win in a reverse sweep. That's the kind of stuff that I was hesitant about. I didn't know what True Neutral was going to bring when they go up against adversity, when they play against different playstyles and have this burnout, what's going to happen. And I hate to break it to Vibrance, but that's kind of how it felt as well, where Vibrance just looked like they had no more gas left in the tank. They were burnt out. Long day, just couldn't really stick to it. And the passes and the plays that they had going weren't connecting. And a lot of the small nuances and the things that they were doing really, really well, like, hey, I found a pass to Buddy in the midfield and he's putting that shot away. Now Buddy's just not right on the perfect position to hit that on a dime and put it in the net like he was against V1 and other teams. So I'm really happy for True Neutral to see them handle that type of adversity and actually rise to the occasion and play extremely well. Unfortunately for them, because they're a low seed, they're playing the best team from the other side of the bracket if they advance, which they do, and they go into the playoffs. We then get into our third and final stage. It's a double elimination, just best of 7 straight. Really simple, really clean. And we get into the first match, which is Space Station versus True Neutral. And Space Station does look like the best team in the group at the moment. True Neutral puts up a pretty dang good fight, but this is where Arsenal and Sypical really started to step up. Redo's still on his demo game, as always, being an absolute nuisance, and it's working. Space Station gets talked about how they're boring, and it's not exciting to watch, but it's effective, and it gets some W's. And at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do. Trying to get championships. Space Station looks pretty damn good doing it. So congrats to Space Station. Unfortunate for True Neutral, but True Neutral does end as a top 4, which is really exciting to me. On the other side, you get Xset versus Envy, and Xset with another upset, which again was kind of the common theme, where Xset just came ready to play. They play really solid Rocket League. It's not flashy. It's not all that exciting. It's actually kind of boring, in my opinion, but it's consistent and it works. They're going to punish you for mistakes, and that's all they need to do. They can still hit flashy shots, and when they get space, it's awesome. But the thing they lack, in my opinion, right now is they don't do a really good job of creating opportunities. It seems like all the top-level RLCS teams they're playing against do a much better job of finding ways and options to get passes off or open up the defense by going for demos and boost deny and sustaining on offense. I think that's where Xset is having the most trouble right now, and I'm excited to see how that improves when they go back and do VOD review and all that kind of stuff and replay analysis. Right now, it just feels like they're not able to create enough opportunities for shots. They were getting outshot like 4-1 at one point in some of their games. So although they still keep it a very close game, I'm excited to see when their offense can transition into more threat. But right now, they just play very, very even to a lot of teams. Envy is also notorious for, hey, we got a couple goals. Now we're going to shut you down. You're not going to score anything after this. And we're going to keep it close. It's going to be a 1-goal win. That's all we need. So Xset able to beat out Envy was really exciting on that one. They move on to play Space Station in the upper bracket. Then drop down to the lower bracket. We've got Envy versus True Neutral. And unfortunately for True Neutral, they do get 4-0'd. Envy ready to play, ready to go on. 3-2 in game 1. And then after that, Envy completely shuts them out, which is what I'm talking about. They're very difficult to score on. And Atomic started really feeling it. You could tell that Envy was probably going to make their way back once they started gaining some momentum. They then go to the second lower bracket match, which ends up happening after Space Station and Xset play in the upper bracket final, which Space Station 4-2's Xset. Space Station is just the better team in this one. Nothing against Xset. They put up a really good fight. Valiant effort for sure, but they drop down. And then they, again, do the same thing that I was excited for in True Neutral. How are you going to handle the adversity? How are you going to handle coming off a tough loss, having to play another top-tier team immediately back-to-back? Are all these upsets you've gotten throughout the previous tournament flukes? And the answer is no. They bring Envy all the way to 7. There's an overtime in there, a bunch of 1-goal games. They keep it close yet again, but the same issue. Their offense has difficulties creating additional opportunities. And I say that against Envy, which is one of the best defenses in North America. Envy is absolutely insane when it comes to controlling the midfield, stopping the ball from being cleared, and a continuous applying of pressure. And again, Xset just has a difficult time of continuously putting on numerous shots. Like 1 goal a game is not going to do it against some of these teams. So I am hoping that they kind of find additional ways to do that, whether they do it with solo plays, more demos, whatever it may be. I think that's something that they'll definitely learn from playing against teams like Space Station, where they could definitely work a lot more demos into their rotation, and it might free up some stuff. But overall, XSET, very, very exciting results. Fantastic addition with Percy. I'm glad to see we finally get to see why they went with Percy and how things went from scrims after they decided to sign him. So congrats to XSET. A top 3 performance out of all these teams is incredible, and round of applause to you guys. We then get a somewhat assumed grand final. Most people would say that Space Station Envy are probably some of the favorites to end up here, and they do that. It got very late. Right now it is 9 p.m. my time. These matches ended roughly about 20-30 minutes ago, so it ran pretty late. I've also still got a pack because I'm leaving. I'm pretty biased in the fact that it wasn't a bracket reset. I'm actually kind of happy about it. Space Station again just looks really, really good. Boring play, don't care, still super effective. This one was extremely close, very back and forth at times. 2 overtimes that could have went either way. Space Station takes the first one in game 3, and then Envy takes the second one in game 5. But at that point, Space Station bounced back. I don't care who you give the MVP to, and it seems like the broadcast felt the same way. Typical got it in the last one, so they gave it to Reddles this time. Reddles did tweet, which you're probably seeing here, that he's actually splitting it 3 ways with his teammates, talking about team effort, loves his teammates, which is what you want to see. Space Station, you know, grinding on a high. They talked about how complacency was an issue after the first split of RLCS 10. They want to make sure that's not an issue. So looks like the guys are playing a lot, are grinding. All the questions about Envy not playing, don't have any hours, blah, blah, blah. Envy definitely looks like they're playing and playing well. I don't know what Turbo's been doing in the offseason, but he's looking incredible too. So I'm excited for this next season of RLCS X11. And that is not it. Although this tournament is done, there is another one this week. Starting on the 16th of this week, which I think is Thursday, is going to be the We Play Esports Invitational. If you haven't seen my coverage on it, go check out those videos in the related, or they'll probably display somewhere up here at some time. You can click on that and it'll bring you to the video, or you can just go to my YouTube videos and it'll be in the past ones. But the We Play Esports Invitational, $50,000 for NA, $50,000 for EU. It's the best of the best. Really exciting stuff. So massive shouts to all the people involved in this tournament, behind the scenes, production, otherwise, Dazerin, J-Ski, all of you guys made it look incredible. Gummer, I forget how to say your name, man. We've worked in the past together, but he does an excellent job on production, content creator contest, a lot of really cool stuff implemented in this. Dazerin went above and beyond, and there's a lot of people behind the scenes that make this stuff work. So to all the commentators, casters, production crew, admins, TOs, everybody that goes involved in doing this, it was a fantastic event. It was ran extremely well. There's a lot of cool things. Instead of doing breaks and sponsorship reads and stuff like that, they ended up showcasing content creators, giving them a chance to use, you know, the platform to try and grow, and had a contest for that. So really cool stuff here from Dazerin and what he did for Wave Dash. I'm sure he's excited to take a little bit of a break before they get into RLCS 11, which is rumored to be coming out on the 15th. It looks like the 15th it's going to be teased. I will be doing a reaction to that when it drops with some friends. I'll tell you guys about that when it hits. But that is going to do it for this video. If you guys have any additional questions, comments, concerns, other things you'd like to know, check in the description down below with all my socials as well. And while you're down there, if you enjoy the content, give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and I will see you soon in a very unique setting. Stay tuned.